How I went from antisocial and insecure into a confident and charismatic man. This video is so important to me, and I guarantee you there's a lot of value in my story. It all starts when I was younger. When I was a 5-year-old kid, I was very social. One of the earliest memories I have is my mom would get calls basically telling her that, hey, your son, he doesn't want to go to sleep. He's waking up all the kids during nap time. And I thought this was really funny, but it's crazy to think that when I was young, that would happen. And I also had a girlfriend when I was 5 and just a bunch of other things. Essentially, I was a social person. I was actually a cool kid when I was super young. Now, what ended up happening is as I got older, when I became a teenager, I remember my high school years is when I started developing more anxiety and insecurities. And this is actually very common. If you're listening to this, you might resonate with this one part. I'm telling you, this is where most people develop insecurities and anxieties. Because essentially, once you get into high school as a man, now it's not so much of us just being funny and hanging out with friends. Now there's this hierarchy system. That's what high school is really like. There's the popular kids, there's the nerdy kids, there's the jocks, there's other groups. But essentially, if you're not popular, if you're not handsome, if you're not athletic, then you fall into lower hierarchies. Even if you're really smart, but you're not athletic and you're not handsome at all, and you're not like physically capable, or you don't like have insane, you're not like super funny, then no one really cares that you're funny in terms of the social hierarchy. No one cares that you're smart in terms of the social hierarchy. And this sucks because being smart is it's a very good thing, right? And I'm saying that, I'm going into that because I was a very smart kid in high school. Even though I wasn't very handsome, I wasn't very athletic, I was very smart, and I was pretty funny. But as a result, I was never high up in this hierarchy. You might be relating to this. You might have been an outsider, but that's how I felt my entire high school. I felt like an outsider. However, fast forward, what ended up happening is when I went to college, I met this woman, and she was my ex. And what ended up happening is I met this woman who was my high school sweetheart. It's really funny. It's a long story, but basically I met her when I was 14, but I didn't actually date her until I was 18. And it was almost like this dream come true. And that's because what happened was when I was 16, it's the reason I have this tattoo, but this is probably the most important part of the story, is when I was 16, I went through a lot of shit. Okay? Because like I said, when I was in high school, I was developing these insecurities. I was an outsider, and that led me to smoking a lot of weed. That led me to drinking a lot. That led me to doing other drugs. And also just hanging out with the wrong crowd. People who weren't trying to be successful. People who weren't good for me. People who weren't healthy. As a result, I was hanging out with this crowd. I was doing all these bad negative vices and negative habits. I stopped studying. I actually got kicked out of 2 high schools. And not only that, but I got into a skateboarding accident and I got appendicitis. And both of these things, ironically, were on May 16 and April 16. Hence the tattoo, and that's why I have it. I remember when this happened, I was very shocked that it happened on the same day, but the craziest part is that it also happened at the same hour. It was at 1 a.m., which, funny enough, that was actually when I was born as well. I was born at 1 a.m. It happened, and I remember me thinking, like, this is so weird that on the 16th, I get into the accident, but at 1 a.m., the 17th, which is when I was in the hospital, I get admitted to the hospital. Both times, it makes me feel, because back then I was 16 as well, that's the funny part. It makes me feel like 16 is just not my year. I got kicked out of these 2 schools, I got these 2 injuries. It makes me think, perhaps when I'm 17, that's gonna be my better year. I remember having this conversation with my mom, and it was kind of like this funny, almost like nerdy thing I just came up with. And my mom was like, yeah, that's interesting. And I told my mom in that moment, I was like, no, I promise. Like, I'm done smoking weed. I'm done avoiding school. I'm done being a bad kid. I'm going to try harder from now on. I'm so over this shit. And I said all this while I was in the hospital bed. I'm so over all this stuff. I also feel like there's a reason I'm alive still. There's a reason I went through what I went through, and I'm still here, and I still have a chance with school. You haven't left me yet. You still believe in me. Which is another very important part here, is like my mom always believed in me. Even though my family and my friends, they weren't always a very stable system. And I'm grateful for them, of course. But they just weren't that stable with their love, with their care for me, while my mom was, like, my whole life, right? And I'm very grateful for that. I understand some of you might have had that, some of you might have not. But what I can say is that I told her that promise, right? And essentially what I said is I was going to, begin again, which is funny because 1616 in numerology means that. So that's the other that's a double entendre with my tattoo. But I said I was going to begin again and become this new person, whatever. Fast forward, that's what happened. So when I was 17, and back to the dating story, when I was 17, I got more into the gym. I started going to school. I started taking care of myself more. And when I was 18, I ended up meeting that high school sweetheart again. And this time we dated and we got into this 3-year relationship. And it was amazing. Like, at the time, I was on cloud 9. It was so cool. It was like a movie, right? First time I ever fell in love. First time I ever had a real girlfriend, like a girlfriend longer than a month, right? So, and like I said, I wanted this girl my whole high school years, right? So I just have a lot of memories about that, and just remembering the feeling of accomplishment and success, almost like Rocky, right? Like I had a horrible 16 and 15 and 17 was just bad. Like 15 and 16 were bad, but 17, 18 and 19, my life just got up. And I remember feeling so accomplished and so happy. And it's funny because I didn't even know that this was just the beginning, because this leads into what ends up happening with my ex, which is I went to college, right? About 1 year into the relationship. And I remember walking around college, just having this feeling of, wow, there's so many attractive women at this college. Man, like if I was single, that'd be kind of cool. I could talk to these women. But no, I love my girl, so I can't, do anything about this. This was like a voice in my head, right? And just to correct what I said, I think I was actually maybe 1.5 years into dating her, maybe 2. But I remember having that small voice in my head. And it's almost like I loved her, or whatever the word is, I loved, liked, whatever, attached, I don't know, her so much to the point where, to me, the wanting, the lust, it wasn't worth it, right? But it was almost like this battle where, like, my love for her was here, the lust I had for women was here. But what ended up happening, and here's the caveat, which is I didn't have much dating experience up until this point, right? She was actually the 3rd woman I ever had sex with and just got intimate with, right? But the craziest part is, like, I never really dated a girl. I never really fell in love. I never went on dates, right? I never really went on dates. I didn't know the idea of a date so much. So I didn't have the experience. So as a result, when I was in college, I was looking at my friends go on dates with girls. I was looking at my friends hook up with women. I was looking at all these attractive women, and I just had this feeling of like FOMO, right? I had FOMO. And this is another point. Maybe a lot of you guys in relationships, or you just had a relationship, you might really relate to this point. But basically what ended up happening over a span of 2 years is I slowly, that comparison of like how much I liked her versus how much I wanted to have experience with other women, it went like this. Slowly went like that, right? And here's the thing. In hindsight, I think it's a mixture of me, sure, I did have something for her, of course, but it was a mixture of not actually that being the woman for me, and I had zero experience with this one area of my life, and I really wanted that for some reason, right? I'm not telling you everyone, man, needs to go through all the dating experience that I went through, and that if you have your girl, you should leave her. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying, like, for me, for some reason, I had a calling, like a really strong calling. And I think it comes back to the point of the insecurity stuff, right? I had all these insecurities, but since I was with this girl, I was so cozy with her that it almost like didn't matter. It's almost like she validated me enough So I was just confident when I was with her, right? But anyways, what ended up happening is I ended up breaking up with this woman. And then I started dating. And then I ran into a problem. And by the way, this is kind of where my whole pickup dating journey begins, really, is when I broke up with my ex and I started dating. I found out this one problem, which is, I can't really attract the same caliber of woman that my ex was. The girls I was attracting were attractive, but like, basically, well, here's what happened. What happened is I was attracting some women. I kind of had this like, I don't know what you call it, but I had this like run with women at the beginning of the junior year of college, which is the first time I was single. And I remember I was like hanging out with all these women, getting all these Snapchats, doing all this stuff. And I remember I hung out with this one girl. This is the next important piece of my dating journey, is I hung out with this one girl who was very attractive. Like, she was more attractive than my ex. I think so. Kind of a similar look too, like a similar kind of woman. But what ended up happening is, like I said, I was having this run where I was talking to all these women, and I hung out with this girl, and it's kind of this crazy story, but I remember we're like hanging out in my dorm, and she asked me if I have a condom, and I said, oh, no, she didn't ask me if I had a condom. I'm trying to remember. Guys, this is a real, raw, authentic story, so I'm trying to really remember the detail, but I don't know if she asked me or she just talks about the idea of sex or something, but it leads to the idea of her telling me that she's allergic to latex. And I've never heard that before in my life. I remember I thought she was lying, but I was like, okay, it's okay. We don't have to have sex. It's totally fine. What ends up happening though is like we're making out, she's sucking my dick and all this stuff. And what ends up happening is like she brings up the idea of sex and tells me, honestly, you know what, let's just have sex. We don't need a condom. And guys, in this moment, since I was doing so well with women at this point in my life, I just thought, you know what, like, I don't need to have sex. I don't need it. So I'd rather just not have sex with this woman, not risk the chance of pregnancy or an STD, and we'll just have sex next time we meet, next time we hang out. Fuck it. And this is literally kind of what I told her, which is something along the lines of, oh, it's all good, we don't need to do it, let's just do it next time, right? Here's what happened. What happened is, well, obviously obviously we didn't have sex, and then she left and she went home. What happened is, like, the next time we were supposed to hang out, which I still remember was a Wednesday, I hit her up, but she doesn't answer. So she flakes. And then on Friday, I re-hit her up. And this is the biggest, almost like fuck up in my dating journey that really led to me becoming a coach and doing this whole thing and the pickup stuff, is I became needy over text. I remember texting her Friday and she didn't answer, and I was just texting her. I was like, hey, I had an amazing time with you. Like, let's just go have dinner. I want to take you out, do this, do that. And guys, she just left me on red again and again, because what you don't want to do, what you really don't want to do as a man, is chase a girl who's running away from you. So if she's running away, you don't want to just keep going for her, right? That's going to make her run more. It's kind of like a cat. It's almost like, I don't know if this is a good analogy, but it's more like fire, and it's like the more you blow on the fire, the more the fire goes up. So instead of blowing on the fire, just let that shit burn out, right? That's kind of how I viewed it. But anyways, I fucked up with this girl. I was texting her so much, and I ended up losing her. She didn't text me back. Fast forward, I ended up seeing her again 2 months later, and I had this second chance with her after thinking about her every day. But what ended up happening is what ended up happening is on that date, I became so transparent and basically told her I've been thinking about her, told her that I really like her, told her I want to date her, boom, boom, boom. And we did kiss and stuff, but nothing happened too much. And then after that day, fully ghosted, never seen her again in my life. To this day, I don't know where she's at, which is really funny. I never seen her again. That was the biggest pain I had, because it was a girl that I met that I really liked, and then I was thinking of her for 2 months after getting rejected, and then she gave me a second chance, and then I got rejected again, and then next thing you know, my confidence was shattered, like really shattered. And I started my insecurities were like really bubbling up. So this was the lowest point of my dating journey, because what ended up happening is I started trying to date more women and get better at this, but I was so insecure, and I remember I was so anxious. And I remember like I dated this girl. This brings me to the next funny point, which is I went on a date with this girl that I would say is a 4, 5. You know, I have really strong ratings, but to me, she was just kind of chubby, whatever face. And I remember going on a date with this girl, she gave me head and everything, but I remember thinking like, is this what it comes down to? Just 6 months ago, I was in bed with a freaking super attractive woman. A lot of guys would say she's a dime or something, right? But she was so attractive. And now I'm in bed with this girl because my confidence is shattered. Wow. Like, fuck. I remember feeling really, like, disappointed in myself. That's how I felt. So, what ended up happening is I basically, where was I? So I was disappointed in myself with this girl. What ended up happening is that moment led me to even stronger levels of commitment with dating. But the funny part is, as I'm like researching dating stuff, pickup stuff, and I discovered Cold Approach on YouTube for the first time, COVID happened. And then that's when I was like, wow, okay, now I can't even be social. So throughout my COVID years, I kind of became this monk. I started reading a lot, meditating a lot, still studying pickup and dating, but obviously I couldn't really do it. And the moment I was able to do it, that's when I went full force into pickup. I remember that summer. It was in San Francisco. And I remember I went full force into pickup. I started going to bars 5 nights a week. I was going all the time, talking to strangers, talking to girls. It started with me just saying hi to 2 people, saying one comment. And then next thing you know, within 2-3 months, I know the whole club. I'm getting dapped up by people. I'm pulling girls home. Really, I had a massive, like a really quick skyrocket in my pickup journey. And I feel like most people don't do that. So it took me about a few months to realize, like, I guess I'm gifted at this. Like, I guess I have what it takes to be good at cold approach. Because I know I said I had, dating experience in the past, and I did have successful moments, but it wasn't cold approach like that. Like, it wasn't like me going to a bar, talking to a girl, me going on the street, talking to a girl. It was more like a college thing or like a friend thing or whatever, right? So my cold approach was really good, and it led me to taking this boot camp with this coach. And that was in Miami. And then when I took that boot camp, that skyrocketed me more, because there's something about being around someone who knows this thing that really just makes you, 1, just believe it, right? But 2, I met this other guy who does a lot of pickup, and we became friends, and we're still friends to this day. And that like helped me go more forward, which eventually led me to dropping out of college. Because what happened was, I was literally failing classes. I was literally being irresponsible. And that's because I had no wanting to do anything but socialize. Spending my days doing the talk forever drill in the bathroom, going outside talking to people everywhere, going out doing direct approaches, calling girls cute, whatever. I was spending my day just being social at the gym, here, there. I was obsessed with it. It was like my passion. It was my passion. You know why? Because I sensed progression every week, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. I sensed myself getting more confident, getting less insecure, getting more funny, getting more flowy, getting more comfortable just speaking with everyone. It was such an amazing feeling. And I started getting a lot of interest from women. I started becoming like a cool guy at this college. I started getting more popular, this and that. And then that's what led to me dropping out of college, because I had this job opportunity. At the time, a YouTuber whose name is Coach Kyle, he was looking for a salesperson, right? I didn't do sales, but I liked his content. I thought he was like the best dating coach on YouTube. And what happened was, like, I dropped out of college to work for him. Really what happened is we got on a Zoom call. And, well, it was like this long story. Basically, I DM'd him saying, hey, maybe I'm down. He's like, okay, send a video. I send the video. He's like, oh, your vibe is cool. Let's hop on a Zoom call. Boom, boom. We get on the Zoom call. We talk. We clicked like this, like so easily, so naturally. We became like cool so easily, right? And the main thing we had in common was our passion for pickup, dating, and to help people. Like our passion for communication, for social skills, for pickup, for dating, for this whole concept of going from anti-social and insecure into a confident, charismatic man. We both did it, and we both like recognized each other for that. So I dropped out of college, and then 2 days later, I flew out to Jersey, and I started living on his couch, and we became super tight. He was running me through the business. We started going out on the weekends. He was boot camping him personally. We were going out, and he was correcting me and teaching me shit all the time. He really wanted, it was almost like I was his guinea pig, and he really wanted to make me into this monster of a guy, right? And I had everything that it took for that. I had the energy, I had the passion, I had the natural, I generally did have a lot of natural talent for some of this shit, right? And the talent was always that, like, I guess you could call my talent was that I liked to socialize and I liked to push myself. Even though I felt shy, I liked the thrill. You could call that a talent. You could also call it a mindset that you should just adopt, that you start to like the thrill. You like pushing yourself. You don't like just being comfortable in your house watching TV all the time. So anyways, what ended up happening is he did make me a monster. I started working with him side by side. I was basically his right-hand man, and my position in the company just kept going up and up and up. And to this day, it's been about 4 years since we started working together, and we're still working together. And now I'm in Miami, and now I'm in a penthouse, and now I have a girlfriend, right? And a lot has happened in the last 4 years. But really, if I could summarize, maybe I shouldn't summarize it, but really if I could tell you guys like what happened is like, I started working with him. I started going out and doing pickup all the time, studying this stuff even more, because I became a dating coach really early. And then what happened was like, my pickup, my game just skyrocketed crazy. And then maybe like 2-3 years later, I moved to Miami, which was last year. Last year I moved to Miami with Kyle, right? I'm here by myself. He's in his own spot. And I'm living the dream, right? I'm in Miami, just walking around, hanging out, chilling, life is good. Oh, what ends up happening, this is the next important piece, which is I went viral on Instagram and on YouTube and on these platforms for this video of me going around and complimenting people. It's just so funny. It's like the most simple, going back to the basics of pickup, the most simple thing is what made me go viral. Very interesting. But anyways, I went viral, I started getting more attention, I started getting recognized on the street. And this was great. It really solved this, it really like filled up this thing within me that I wanted. But then that led to me kind of feeling like, okay, I got the virality, I feel like a master at this pickup stuff. I feel really good at talking to women. I feel very confident. I feel charismatic. I feel attractive. Boom, boom, boom. What's next, right? It led to a what's next kind of moment. And what ended up happening is I ended up finding a girlfriend. Right? So I had that girlfriend back then. Now I have this girlfriend now. And that's been great. That's been a great journey. It's been about 7 months of us talking. It's really interesting. It's almost like the moment my desire to pick up and do all this crazy stuff kind of went down, she just kind of appeared in my life. And that's a whole different story. But basically, it's been going great. I feel very happy with this relationship. And I still coach and teach men pickup and dating and all this stuff, and it's my passion. I love it. I love helping men out with this stuff because of this entire story, right? I know what it's like to be from the bottom. I know what it's like to not have the skill set, to be scared to approach, to want the woman of your dreams. And I know what it's like to land a woman, to have the success, to have the validation from men, people looking up to me, right? Just the other night, I was at Space in this club, and this guy the guy who checks the IDs, he's like, "Oh, you're on YouTube. Oh, I like your YouTube channel, whatever." It's funny because like everyone behind me was like, "Oh, wow, you're so famous." It was really funny. But guys, I know what it's like, right? I went through all these phases, right? The lowest points, the higher points, right? I got the validation from people talking to me, and then that led to me like feeling like, all right, you know what? I've mastered this pickup stuff. And then that's when I felt this desire die for pickup, but then my desire for a relationship and connection, it grew, it blossomed. And then that's when I had the relationship, and to this day, the main thing that was the same throughout all these points is I've always loved helping people. Loved helping men out with this concept of socializing, of communication, of all these things. Back when I was in college, I would help people in the hallways. When I started working with Kyle and all that, I started working as a coach. To this day, I still work as a coach, but now I do a lot of content as well. Guys, I love helping people. I've helped a lot of men with this. If you want to make a similar transformation, I know I can do that for you. The link is in my description to work with me one-on-one. That's all. Have a great day. Peace.